Howdy, y'all. Our names are Annika, Cassandra, Mark, and Sarah, and this is our final project for Geography 352. We are doing it over GNSS reliability on locations of broken concrete around Texas A&M's main campus. So to summarize our project, our main scope of study was around Academic Plaza on Texas A&M University's campus. This is essentially just the area around Evans Library. So our campus, as many of y'all know, is about a century old. And a lot of the heavy traffic areas around campus contain broken concrete, as y'all can see from the two pictures on the right side. And over time, the concrete has just broken up, and it is really dangerous to walk in these areas if you do not proceed with some sort of caution. So we are going to be using GNSS skills, including GPS and cartography, to plot out these points of concern around campus. So the main problem here is that walkways around the campus are very cluttered with cracks, which can be very dangerous. And these cracks in the concrete are formed either by overgrown trees and their roots coming up through the concrete, or the unevenness in the laying of the concrete. And as a result, water can form in these areas, making the campus just really muddy and hard to walk around. And this can be dangerous for people in wheelchairs or riding scooters around campus because they can essentially trip over these cracks. So to fix these problems, we hope to make a map in Field Maps, which is an Esri GIS application. And this map will determine the location of these faults in order for them to be properly fixed.
So I will be discussing the methods that we used for this project collectively. We used a Nikon D3500 camera to capture images of the cracked concrete and the uprooted vegetation around campus, using a higher quality camera over the iPhones. We also used iPhones, that's our second method, to use handheld GPS, which is often compared to base stations or R10s like Trimble and Garmin units. But the surveying industry is trying to go more modern and more handheld, at your fingertips kind of technology. So we were testing out field maps and civilian GPS. Our third method is also the field maps application that was used to mark precise latitude and longitude coordinates and point out these areas of concern, and then to generate polygons surrounding those points using feature layers in a composite map. Our next methods is method number 4, which is the ArcGIS online application, which is an Esri application that was used to create each of the base maps that the 4 of us individuals went out together and found these points and tried to mark the same point and the same polygon. And then we compared those accuracies later on in Excel, where we just transferred those points together to create those maps. And then our 5th method is ArcGIS Pro, where we published this map and we used it to create the scope of the study. So altogether, we created a 2D model out of the data collected using field maps, ArcGIS Online, and also statistics to compare the latitude and longitude of these points of distress.
So, as previously mentioned, as a group, we went around campus in order to try and find areas of concern. With that being said, in order to assess if an area is actually an area of concern, we created a criteria to help with this. So our criteria consisted of 3 different categories, that being least severe, somewhat severe, and most severe. Areas that were considered least severe just kind of consisted of a really long crack in the sidewalk, just to kind of show that the sidewalk is wearing down due to the copious amounts of foot traffic. Somewhat severe areas would be areas that have chunks of concrete missing, that would have levels of a slight elevation, some sinking, just so water retention could occur. And the most severe areas would be areas of severe uprooting. These areas would have the sidewalk be very much elevated, and chunks of the concrete would be cracked apart or missing. And to the right, you can see the list of our locations and how they're ranked least to most severe. So in this slide, we have all of the data that we collected. Each group member collected their own data, and then we all sat down together and compared our data just to make sure that it looked the same, that we didn't have like any crazy outliers. And then we put all of our data into an Excel file. That way we could average all of our points together and place them on a map. That way they could look all nice and organized and wouldn't be just 50 different points.
All right, so to conclude, what we did is we created a map of just all the points that were recorded on the previous slide that we just showed you. And we displayed it by, who took that point and the average of all the points that we collected. And overall, this map is just a great way to display the data that we collected for our project. It shows, all the points that were collected and, the most accurate point out of all of them. And not only would this be like a pretty good map to show university officials who are hoping to clean up this particularly dense and well-trafficked part of campus, around Evans Library, several classrooms, things like that. But it's also a really great way to show the improving accuracy of GNSS just using handheld devices. We only collected 4 points, and if you look at a point near Francis Hall or Harrington Education, either one, you can see that the average point of all the points we collected is pretty well centered. And so I think that shows how this technology is working and how we'll be able to transition from large R10s to just iPhone 11s, which are significantly less expensive and more portable. The green polygons as well are showing the tree layers adjacent to some of the cracks that we were able to find. We determined that for some areas, those were the primary causes. But if you can see near Thompson Hall and the anthropology buildings, we just have a large cluster of just points that surround a large crack we found in the concrete that was not near any tree layer or anything like that. And to conclude, we're going to quote one of the most successful musicians of the 20th century and what he said about success. And so he said that for me, money is not my definition of success. Inspiring people is a definition of success. And that's by Kanye West. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation. We worked really hard on it, and we really appreciate you teaching us this class this semester. Thank you so much.